Here we are in Snapshot. I want to do a deep dive in our metadata differences report. Now, of course, you can take a snapshot of any org right here, and that creates a complete metadata picture of the org. And once you do that, you can look at all of our documentation reports, optimization and cleanup, security and permissions reports. And of course, you could take a snapshot of any other org over here and then connect them with an arrow. When you connect them with an arrow, you can deploy metadata between these two orgs or migrate data sets, but you can also just look at the metadata differences between the two orgs. Now, this is a really key report. Over here at left, you see all 300 metadata types, and you can select any type and you'll see the differences over here at right. So for example, let's look at the object differences, and you'll see a bunch of objects are different, missing on the source, missing on the destination, or identical on the source and the destination. You can pull down this top area and select any of the objects. Let's look at the account object, and you can go through the individual differences. Now, one of the nice things that Snapshot does is it divides out all of the child assets, like fields, record types, validation rules, and compares them separately. So for example, in this case, we can see that this is the same field by name, but it has individual differences in green and red. And if you look through all this information, you'll see, for example, here's a field that's only available on the source. Here's a field that's only available on the destination. And other fields are available on the source and destination, and then here's the individual differences in them. So this is way better than the traditional XML comparison because it's Salesforce metadata aware. And I want to show you something else. Notice as I mouse over all of these different elements in this custom field, the definition of each element is called out by my tooltip at left. In fact, we do this for all 37,000 elements in the metadata API. It's extremely useful because it tells you what everything is in context while you're working with it. Here's something else you can do with this particular view. One of the things you could do is choose to explain the account object. And when you do that, it'll bring up an AI-enabled interface that lets you share prompts with your team and select any prompt that you're interested in. And then when you submit the prompt, it'll tell you all of the information about your account object because it's aware of the documentation and it's aware of your business use cases as well. And it combines all that information, and you can see the overview, intended purpose, current capabilities, external interactions, everything about the account object. This is super useful, and it works for flows, for sharing rules, for all of the different metadata assets that you're interested in. Here's something else you can do. At almost every point in Snapshot, you can right-click something and export the appropriate report. In this case, let's look at the differences between the account object in these two orgs. Export that as a PDF, and here's the differences report. It can be branded with your logo, and it shows you all of the differences, color-coded red and green and white, in this case in the account object. So this is great documentation to understand all of the differences that have changed between these two orgs. You can also run this report on Apex classes and give those to your dev team. So it's a super useful report that shows the detailed differences in the account object. All right, now the basic idea here is you check all of the things at left that you care about, and then you go to the Display Report tab, and this creates a giant roll-up report of all of that information. So first of all, you can right-click and export it in every format, including native Excel files. But as you look through this, you'll see, this has a lot of information about all of the differences in these two orgs. You can also look at dashboards, and the dashboards are all interactive, and you can, of course, export those as well. And we have a summary table, which gives you all of the high-level information about everything that's missing or different or similar in this org. Now, the other thing you can do is you can hide things. So you can say, I don't want to see identical assets, or missing on the destination, or missing on the source, or even the similar ones. And you can just select whatever it is you're interested in. And you can not only do that for the reports, you can also do that for the individual assets. So for example, custom objects, I might only be interested in these custom objects, and you can limit it by that. You can also do it for the individual elements that are being compared. So for custom objects, you might say, I don't care about this history stuff. I don't want to compare that, just leave that out of the comparison, and it'll do that for you as well. The other thing you can do here is you can look at the detailed differences in all of these assets. And to do that, you can bring up this interface and just export the detailed differences. And what this is doing is looking at all of the assets that have differences and creating a single report for each one of them. Okay, I'm done with that, and here's my report. And so these are all of the differences in my org. And of course, I can just look at any of those and drill into everything that's different, in this case, in the Pricebook 2 object. Now, all of this stuff that I'm doing can be scheduled. And in fact, it can be conditionally scheduled with workflow. So I can say, I want to send this report out, or I want to send an email out, or Chatter or Slack or whatever you want to do, only if different assets are reported. And so that's extremely useful for watching an org, waiting for metadata changes, and then informing the team as to exactly what those changes are. The last thing I want to say is, we've been looking at differences between two different orgs. The other thing that's really useful is to go into Manage Time Series. That will show you differences for the same org over time. All right, that's a deep dive into the Metadata Detailed Differences report.